Hey innovators, a very good evening for you all and hope you all are doing well. Your time is limited, so don't waste it to living in someone else's life. Such an incredible quote by the Steve Jobs, who is the founder of Apple Incorporation. So what I need to convince you is he had 24 hours for a day and we also have. Then if he could innovate such a big things, why we can't? I'm 100% sure this program will make your mindset to that level. And one day you will be the great innovator. Here is the 7th episode of successful webinar series of Invent Ovation 2020-21 organized by IESL UIY Committee collaborating with Faculty of Engineering, University of Jaffna. So before we going to the next step, let's have a quick recap. How was the episode 6 happen? Sorry for the inconvenience. All right. So the next step, I cordially invite Mr. Indushan Bandara to deliver a welcome speech. Over to you, Indushan.
Good evening all. It's my pleasure to welcome all the distinguished guests and gathering on this webinar today. First, I will take this opportunity to warmly welcome today's session guest speaker, Engineer Raghupatiraj Valluvan, and Chairman of IESL JIY UIY Committee, Engineer Navadana Kankanamge, and Engineer Mathulinga Vignaraja, Senior Treasurer of IESL Student Chapter, University of Jaffna, and all the participants warmly welcome who have joined this webinar. Briefly, this is the 7th episode of Innovation Program. This episode is celebration of IESL JIY UI Committee, IESL Student Chapter, University of Jaffna, Today's topic is fostering invention and innovations and way forward. As you all know, the importance of new technologies, innovations and inventions, and the way in which they are transforming the world. So I'm sure this webinar will be a great opportunity for all the participants to start and develop your innovation and thinking and make the way forward. And kindly request from all the participants to get the maximum information and knowledge while actively participating in the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhushan. Engineer Mr. Nabodhana Kankanamage. He is the project engineer at Ceylon Electricity Board and the council member of IESL. As the next step, I cordially invite Mr. Kankanamage to deliver a brief introduction about UIY and the Invennovation. Sorry for the inconvenience. Due to some connection problems, sir has left. So we will move to the next step. Fostering innovation, invention, and the way of forward. Yeah, to share something about today's speaker. He completed his BSc degree with first class honors in 2007 from University of Peradeniya and obtained his Master of Science in Electrical Engineering focusing on telecommunication in 2010. He is pursuing his doctoral degree at University of California, Irvine. Presently, he is attached to the Electrical and Electronic Engineering Department as lecturer. So please welcome Engineer R. Valluvan to Valluvan. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Keshant. All right. So I hope you can see my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Hello?
Yeah, sir, we can.
You can. All right. Okay, great. Thanks. All right. So this is again talking about the innovation, invention, and way forward. This is something not conventional we are talking about. So I don't want to deliver another lecture here. So I want to present few facts as possible. And so looking at the audience, so most of you are from UOJ, I believe, and almost all of us, all of you are undergrads. So you made better. Let's have it like more or less a discussion, and you may have doubts and things that you want to clear up, and especially concerning what is an invention, innovation, and what do you really mean by fostering innovation and invention, and what sort of opportunities and challenges that you may face down the road, being aspiring engineers, as well as when you start the career and even down the road. So I'd rather have it as a discussion rather than an official talk or a lecture. So of course I have few slides with me. So please feel free to pose any question as we go on. So I'll try to in the chat, or at least try to convey the message to me by unmuting. But we'll have a Q&A at the end, so where we really hope that we'll have an engaging discussion there. All right. So what is the difference? Because here we have in our title about the innovation and invention. So there's a decent number of population could actually confuse both of them. So innovation does not mean invention. So invention is something a bit different than innovation. So it's very important to know the difference, especially being an engineering undergrad or an engineer down the road. So you need to know what's the difference between invention and innovation, right? So invention is, but it's like you're creating something new. So it's creating, designing, or discovering a device. It could be a device or a method or a process. So it also could be, say it's a method or process, so it can also constitute an algorithm. Like, for example, if you're delving into the modern trends of AI and ML, so we can develop a novel algorithm which can also constitute for an invention. So that has not existed before. So this is something completely new, right? So that is actually an intellectual property. So it's a result of your intellect. So it can be patented. Patent means the rights to use that invention is with you if you get the patent granted for that. So as it provides the security to the inventor, so the person who invents it, for the intellectual property rights. So that is the intellectual property. So intellectual property is a diverse term actually. So there are several things. Invention of the patent is one of the intellectual property. Copyrights are there. Copyright is there. Anything you create, your writing, your painting, source codes, industrial designs, like circuit layout. So these are there are different types of intellectual property. So patent is one such intellectual property, and also identifies it as an actual invention. So having a patent is actually a recognition, one, and a protection, the second one. So nobody can copy it without your authorization. So, but it has a limited number of years of protection. So typically the life of a patent is 20 years, but there we can do some sort of a renewal of protection yearly. So to be patented, the invention must be novel. It should have some value, and it is not obvious. So this is a very important term. So the non-obviousness of that invention, because say the definition goes like this. We don't have to go into the definition, but the thing is like this. For example, if you're making an invention in the field of electrical and electronic engineering, so for a person in that field, it should not be obvious. Say they say I'm an electrical engineer. So if another electrical engineer come up with an invention or let's say a novel sensor, to sense, let's say, a temperature at extreme conditions or something like that. But for me, when I hear that about that invention, it should not be very obvious. Oh, this is how they make it, right? But it should not be. It should be very like say, there should be something really novel or something new. A lot of effort and time should have gone into that in thinking of that particular solution. So it is not obvious to a person who's skilled in that art of electrical engineering, right? So that is non-obvious. So it should be anybody in that field. It should not be very obvious, very clear. Like for the knowledge that they have, it's not obvious. So it's something new that this particular person or inventor have created. So it's completely a new process, a device, or a method. In other words, it could also have an algorithm. But innovation is something different. So it's basically a change or an evolving of certain process or some new features that you introduce. So a change that adds value to the products or services. It's like it could be a process innovation or a product innovation, a service innovation that fulfills the need of the customers. So, for example, let's say now we can renew our revenue license online. So it's kind of like an innovation introduced in that process. So it adds value, right? You don't have to go and stay in the line and spend your physical time to get the revenue license from the division of the office or any place that you get it from. So it saves a lot of time. So that's actually times of value, right? So that's sort of service. That's an example for service innovation. So there are a lot of innovations around you. You could like say, even some apps, like say the pandemic provided a lot of opportunity even for a lot of students actually. So they're making a lot of innovation and benefiting from that. So creating an app and kind of giving a value to that. So there's actually somebody is benefiting out of it, right? It adds value to somebody is actually served by that product or process. So an introduction or development of a new product, process, technology, service, or improving or redesigning the existing ones which are already there that provide solution to the current market requirements or current problems that somebody is facing. So that could be like completely entirely new, like an invention, but most of the time invention stands out from innovation a little bit above because this is completely new. It should be non-obvious. But here you can put together, so let's say you can introduce an app to a particular, for a service or something like that, right? Earlier, before these apps and smartphones came, the restaurants or there are other services which still delivered, right? The foods or products or even other services. The yellow page was there, right? Where you can get the information of the businesses to get services, right? But now you have they have apps and all the modern tools. So it actually adds more value to that. So it's a new innovation than but it still existed in a different form, right? But invention is completely novel. So in order to be provided or like granted to be granted with a patent, you need to clearly point out what is the inventive step. So it's called an inventive step. So which involves a particular claim. Like for example, this particular thing that you have invented is making this very novel, and it is not done by anybody else anywhere, not within in our country, anywhere in the world. So that's a very important part. So most of the things that we are currently seeing around us is actually being tested and already done somewhere else. So we're bringing that solution to the country. That sort of course, it's innovating the local market. But for being qualified as an invention, it should not be done anywhere ever before, right? So when you, let's say, come up with a new device or a product or a process, thinking that, okay, it's an invention, but when you file for a patent with the National Intellectual Property Office, NIPO, they do patent search through different databases. Because every country has a database of patents claimed filed in their own country. So we have to check, the office needs to check with the database it has in Sri Lanka. The World Intellectual Property Organization is another place where it maintains a database. And every country has, so the majority of the countries, we have to check and make sure nobody else has done it. So if somebody has already done it, and you'll receive a letter, okay, such a thing already exists, whether you can clearly explain what is the inventive step you have made. Then you have to write to them back and explain them this is exactly it. Then if they're satisfied, you'll get a patent for that particular claim that you made or not, right? So this is a very tedious process. It takes around 1 or 2 years, right? But innovation, you can innovate in different places, like products, services. So it is around us everywhere. You can see on a day-to-day basis, a lot of things actually happening. And the last 2 years is a good example of how many different innovations and opportunities were there, innovations made to make the life of the people better, especially amidst this pandemic. So, but why it is important, right? So why do we need invention? So just see a couple of examples. What happens when people or companies stop innovating or inventing? So a very good example is Kodak, right? People, I don't know whether your generation here had seen films, right? Kodak films, or a camera which you put film roll in it. So they have the patent, Kodak company. So they dominated the photographic film market. So in Sri Lanka, I believe like they were both Kodak and Konica, but then they vanished. So the Kodak dominated the photographic film market during most of the 20th century. They were the big players, right? Nobody could challenge them. But interestingly, in 1975, an engineer at Kodak, Steve Sasson, actually invented the first digital camera back in 1975. Right? That's way back. But it was filmless photography. So the management's reaction was, oh, that's nice, but don't tell anybody about it. They just want to hide it. Because what will happen if this thing gets produced and sold? I think interestingly, they invented the same thing, right? They didn't see how this could revolutionize everything, but they were only thinking about how many films they can sell and how much money they make on that. So they don't want to compromise that, but they couldn't see beyond it, right? What happened is they hid it, right? So the leaders of the Kodak failed to see digital photography as a disruptive technology. But if they had taken it to the market, they would be the dominating people around the world, right? Nobody can challenge them. They're so strong at that time. So they kind of simply ignored it. So this actually happens on a day-to-day basis. Don't think these things they don't happen. Because companies, like big players, big corporate companies, actually, whether it is pharmaceutical companies, automobile manufacturers, big guys, what they do is they always seek for new inventions, but also ensure that some inventions which are challenging their products do not go to the market as well. So there are different dynamics at play, but it will be really interesting to see, because you would have seen, right, heard about many lawsuits being filed, like, for example, Apple versus Samsung. So they, at some point, people do copy patents, so they get into lawsuits, because if you have patent and don't have the rights to license, or you don't have the license for that patent, you cannot make such a product and sell it, or at least have a feature there. But people secretly copy, and then they fight in the courts and they settle. A lot of things happen. And also people, if some new technique or new disruptive technology is coming, there are companies actually looking at that and trying to bury it. So they completely buy that product patent and paying a one-time payment to the inventor and just bury that product. So, but that means nobody else is going to copy that and make a new product out of it. So these are, you may see it as narrow-mindedness, but these are strategic decisions they make. And so this is a very good example where a big failure, this failure was the demise of Kodak. They went out of picture at all, completely. Another example is Xerox. They were the first to invent the PC. They were very big by that time in the 70s and so on. They were the first to invent PC, and their product was way ahead of its time. Right? But the management thought going digital would be too expensive, and they never bothered to exploit the opportunities they had. They would have conquered the world. Right? Yeah. But they failed to understand that you can't keep perpetually making money on the same technology. So you cannot make the same thing again and again and again and again and think that there will be the same number of people or customers will be pumping money and buying the same product from you. Right? There will always be. So sometimes technology fails too. Right? So the technology always get outdated. So you always have to keep on improving, innovating. So it does not apply only for the companies. Right? It always applies for the organizations or institutions, whether it's profit or non-profit, public or private, anybody. So anybody who's not innovating or changing themselves for the betterment, they ultimately fail. Right? So if you compare I've seen firsthand organizations which completely don't update themselves, fade out, and they completely some companies go bankrupt, and organizations shut their door and pack their bags. People file for bankruptcy and so on. So this is very common in technological landscape. Right? If you do not recognize the opportunity and the innovation, if you don't foster, if you don't encourage that, you will fail. So any organization who suppresses innovation and invention will ultimately fail, whether it's a private or public, anybody. So innovative and inventive quality is very essential. So it's key to building successful institutions and businesses, and ultimately economies. Right? So whenever you see successful economies, there you will see a rich culture of innovation and invention going on. A good example is US, United States of America, where a lot of companies are investing a lot of money and effort into research and development, and just to come up with innovative products and solutions. Pharmaceutical companies are investing a lot of money, billions of dollars, right? Just think what happened during this Corona or COVID-19 pandemic. The people who made vaccines, they're now making big money. But how are they making? Let's say they waited for somebody else to make a vaccine, not investing the human resource and money they had at that time in making a vaccine. They would not have come up with the vaccine, and they are not been making such money. Now the Pfizer is the big earner in this pandemic, right? They're making a lot of money, and the forecasts are even better than last 10 years they had, right? So some of the examples that we may see with these companies which have thrived in innovation or innovative culture, correctly we can point out Apple, especially with the iPhone, because it completely disrupted the communications industry, especially personal communication. And Tesla, Amazon, Google, so they are very good example, and they have a culture within their organizations actually to promote innovation and invention as well. But they're tough, but they do have mechanisms in place to actually bring up new things at a rapid pace. So this is not just limited to business enterprise. So it could be, you can attribute to governance, public sector, right? So whenever a service from the public sector comes in online or through apps and things, it actually makes our lives better. So innovation is key to making an efficient life, because if you'd rather spend 2 hours waiting for a line to get a revenue license, you would rather spend that time making money, right? Or doing a consulting project or something, adding value to your company or your employee, or invest in your personal life. So that adds the quality, right? So innovation could be anywhere, right? So that's why we are seeing a lot of interest in the young population, especially in the undergrad population across the world in social enterprises. So social enterprises are something different compared to businesses. Of course, these social enterprises, they ultimately, the value that they create is actually some sort of an improvement in the society, or a greater population, or a greater good. But it has a business model in it. So that trend is growing, and there are a lot of facilitators are there, like United Nations, UNDP programs. They are really investing a lot of money in promoting social enterprises, especially in Sri Lanka. A lot of rural problems and things are actually being addressed through these social enterprises. So can we learn? So how to be innovative and inventive? So is it naturally coming to a person, or can you actually make somebody learn these skills or abilities, or acquire such abilities? And the answer is yes. And the research, like during the past decade especially, is showing that we can improve innovative and inventiveness by training. Because what is actually happening when you make an invention? Because we are trying to find a solution, right, to a particular problem. So why did not occur to somebody else? Because it's about paying attention or seeing in a different angle. So that's, somebody may call it like out of the box thinking, right? So if you limit yourself, and if you think that, okay, there is no solution to that, there's always no solution. But if you keep your mind open and think, okay, there will be a solution, because most of the problems that we encounter on a day-to-day basis, or even in the world, there is always a solution. The fact is, not enough people have invested their time and energy on looking for that solution, right? A good example is, because in the energy sector, right? So now people, I don't know whether you are following fusion energy, with clean energy, basically, right? So people are working on making, we know that nuclear fusion could be the very the cleanest energy source that we can actually tap, but making it practical is the hardest problem, because you need to have a positive energy outflow from a fusion. So you need to, the environment that we need to create in order to initiate a fusion is, you have to put on energy, but then you need to have take back energy from there. So in order to make it happen, so the engineering and the technology behind it is actually was not developed. So now we are now seeing a lot of breakthroughs happening, especially with the recent demonstration at MIT. So we may have a very clean source of energy down the road in about 10, at least a decade from now. So how did it come to be real? Because of people were spending time on it, right? If you had thought, okay, we have to heat these things to millions of Celsius degrees, and you have to sustain the thing inside an environment, doesn't touch any matter, and making such a tokamak, like this is sustained in magnetic field, and it's very, very tough problem, right? But people worked in it. Right? Even making the nuclear bomb, it did do bad things, but actually it was very tough. But a lot of money and energy and time was invested, and they made it, right? So a lot of problems are like that, right? We have to look at the problem and spend enough time on it, and be passionate about it, and we can solve it. So, but thing is, when you come up with invention, like if you spend enough time and learn to notice things that at different angles, and essentially the out of the box thinking Google talks about. So we can train. These things could be trained. So there are tools available to train. So so the studies, that's what the studies have shown, and they've developed programs and software tools so we can practice, and they see significant improvements in innovation and inventiveness in the population which underwent that training, and compared to a control group. So nothing is out of reach, right? Of course, we have natural abilities, like people have different talents, but they have to capitalize on their talents. But still, we can foster, like develop innovative and inventive abilities as we go on. So this should come naturally to engineers because we are trained, right? So engineering undergrads perspective, if you look at that, you are trained to identify and solve problems. We are problem solvers, right? That's the first thing we do. We solve problems. We identify problems. We solve problems. And not only that, we have the ability to assess the feasibility of multiple solutions, right? We learn to optimize, right? Optimization is one of the key things that we do. We look at economic viability, right? Technical viability, sustainability, so many things we are specifically trained to do. And we know project management and how to implement solutions. So these are the key abilities, right? To do business and do innovation and solve problems. So we have basic ingredients in place. So what do we need in addition is basically an innovation ecosystem. So it's to sustain innovative and inventive culture, to encourage and develop this ability and create entrepreneurial mindset, because should be the motivation. Because whenever you come up with a solution, that solution should be, how do you make it viable? How can you make, let's say, you're coming up with a solution for water crisis in arid places, and then say, okay, the solution would be nice, but how does it become feasible? Right? It should be, somebody should be interested in making that product and selling it. So they have to, in that process, they have to make money. Otherwise, nobody will be interested. Ultimately, of course, things are driven by a scheme of incentives. So monetary incentive is one scheme for the entrepreneurs, right? So if it is not sustainable to build a business around that idea, it is not going to work ultimately, right? Whatever the solution developed, if somebody cannot make money by making that product and selling it, nobody's going to do that. And you cannot even do that too, right? You cannot spend your fortune on that, right? So it should be feasible, right? So that means we should be able to see, to develop those mindsets and see whether we can be entrepreneurial around that solution. And also help launch enterprises. So if we can add these things to an engineer or like engineering undergrad training, the outcome will be significantly or vastly different than what we have seen throughout the years in our engineering education in Sri Lanka. Right? So now we are seeing these changes, right? Everybody has realized we need to make these drastic changes, and the changes are in motion, right? It is happening, right? So, but if you take a university's role, like in general, right? So the people may think, okay, well, yeah, we get trained, we sit exams, we do projects, and write our thesis, present them, and we pass the exam, and then we get the transcript and the degree, and we get a job, right? So that's a traditional way of thinking, right? That's also, of course, let's say if you imagine 20 years ago or 15 years ago, even before that, right? There were a lot of demand for engineers, especially but still there's a demand. But I'm saying is we just needed the hard skills, right? Because a lot of open places were there. You didn't even have to finish your degree to get a position of engineer, even in a government department, right? Because a lot of vacancies were there. So even people who have not completed a degree, they were placed there. They were working, right? Now those positions are filled up. So now you have to be unique. You have to reinvent yourself. What you have beyond a traditional education is what is required, right? So in order to compete in the current industry landscape, you need to be unique. You have to find your plus point. What's your specific skill, or at least stand out among others in order to be recognized and grab an opportunity. So, but how can university help in that way? So universities in general, right? They have a wealth of knowledge through the faculty members, like the lecturers, professors, the senior lecturers we have. The expertise and the wealth of knowledge and facilities, right? Prototyping, manufacturing, testing, labs. So a lot of investment being gone, like whether it's a private university or a public university, it has the knowledge, expertise, and facilities. With that, what they do, okay, we train students, but main outcome is actually expected in research universities, fundamental and applied research. That's the new knowledge the university create, right? They do fundamental and applied research, right? So in basic sciences like engineering, applied sciences, and so on. So through those fundamental research and fundamental and applied research, they make discoveries. They come up with innovation, innovative ideas for business processes and solutions and inventions. That means they generate intellectual property. This is called the intellectual property. So in short, it's IP. So IP could be protected, for example, patent. But there are other forms of IP, as I said, industrial design, copyright, trademark. So these are IPs, right? So IP generated should reach the public, because if you come up with an invention, right, and if nobody gets use out of it, then what's the point of it? Making an invention just to put an additional, I don't know, put in your resume that you have a patent, but if that is not used, then what's the use of it? What's the point of you investing that time and energy in coming up with that solution? Nobody benefits out of it. It's just your credential, right? So IP generator should reach the public or end user as a product or process or service to really deliver the benefits to the society. So that means we need to have a process to make it commercially viable. So you need to take the IP, intellectual property, to the market, right? So that's where the universities have. So I'm talking about universities in general, like around the world, right? The developed countries and developing countries everywhere. So this is a standard setup. So there are technology transfer offices at universities, which help researchers with licensing the technology that they invented, or they came up with their intellectual property. So this term licensing is very important, and I'll come back to that. Right, so the transfer of the technology from the lab to market, to companies for product or service development. Or it can help that student or staff on starting their own business based on the IP, based on the invention or innovation. The university can help the students to start, or students or staff or team to start the business or their own company based on that IP, right? So some facts from developed nations, especially West, where a lot of innovation is happening. So when they started, like early 80s and on, so when the university started the TTOs, technology transfer offices, most of the intellectual properties, patents, were licensed out to companies like corporates, big companies, right? Only about 10 to 15% resulted in startup companies, right? So initially, almost most of them were licensed out, and only few were taken up by the startup companies. Now more than 50%. So currently, the current trend is more than 50% of the IPs are with startups. So it means increasingly the students and staff members are interested in taking their IPs and or the invention that they came up with and making companies or startup companies out of it. And why did this happen? Because of the startup or innovation ecosystem created by those universities or the surrounding environment they are in. Because it takes a lot of time. So what does it constitute, right? What do we really need there? Because in order for a student or somebody to actually come up with the product or make a company out of it, so let's say you have your invention, and then you make a prototype out of it and demonstrate whether this prototype does the job. It could be a software or a hardware, right? But the people who are going to use it should get convinced, okay, this thing is working, right? And also, you also need to ensure what sort of modification and things you need. So you need to study the market, right? And also you have to develop the skills how to study the market. And you need being an inventor, you are skilled in the technology, right? But how about the marketing? How about the finances, accounting, building a team, who's going to head the team, and how you build that scheme, how to talk to people who are investing to get invested in your company, how you to form a company, how to manage it. So these are different set of skills, right? So these need to be developed. So the innovation ecosystem, the startup ecosystem provides all such facilities and the mentorship, the guidance are required to actually help. So this took time to develop. So at the beginning, the universities like Stanford and especially in California, Silicon Valley, a lot of private sector was involved in actually building an innovation ecosystem, startup ecosystem like Y Combinator, incubators, and so on. So around that area, a lot of startups began to form. Now, then the other universities started learning from these models, like Stanford model and different sort of approaches, and then they just started copying it. And now the universities in the West have a lot of, almost all the universities have TTOs and some sort of a pre-incubation and incubation set up there, so the students can easily get benefited out of it. So any staff member or student can walk into the office and talk about their invention and get help to patent it, and then get help with forming a company or even studying whether this thing will really solve the problem they are really into. Because as a researcher or as a student researcher, you have one view of your solution, right? But you need to know what the people think of your solution, what that particular product that you're coming up with is going to do, whether it will deliver or not, right? So these things need to be studied. So those things will be, as a student and a staff member, focusing on the research and your study, really hard to do it by yourself. So you need some help. So that help should be there. So eventually these things started to sprung up, and now we see a lot of IP or new intellectual property developed with the startups, right? So how about Sri Lanka? How about Sri Lankan context, right? So we are relatively new to the startup culture. We're already 10 years into that, right? After 2009, things started to happen, and we are seeing a lot of activity, right? An innovation ecosystem is being formed. So there are privately enabled and state-sponsored ecosystems are emerging. So privately enabled ones are around Colombo, and we see non-profit ones like IT Hub doing a great job, and companies are coming out of it. And state sponsors, so Ministry of Science and Technology and Industry Development Board, Ministry of Industries, a lot of ministries are interested in actually improving these ecosystems and creating ecosystems around the country, not just in West province, especially North and other regions, because a lot of potential is out there, and a lot of innovation could happen, and a lot of companies could form. So when we have companies coming out with IPs, then that can earn a lot of foreign revenue, like say foreign currency, and they to contribute to job creation and economic growth, rapid economic growth. So so that's very crucial, right? So the robust economies that we see in the West is actually due to the policies that created like say three decades ago, like university-based innovation and commercialization, startup culture is now paying up for them, right? So in Sri Lanka, state and major private universities, right, now have established technology transfer offices. We have them, and policies on handling the intellectual property. So there's an IP policy for University of Jaffna and all the universities or with the engineering faculties. And so the University Business Linkage units of all the universities, so that's a TTO office in our university system, is actually handling these things, right? So few universities have started technology or business incubator. So we have one such entity in our university, right? Universities have technology innovation support centers. These are called TISC centers to help with IP protection and commercialization. So these are the places. So the TISC operation is currently in the University of Jaffna. It is handled by the UBL office, right? So every faculty has a UBL coordinator, right? So you can, if you come up with an idea, you need help with that to patent it, you can ask any lecturer, and they can guide you to the right place, right? They can guide you to the coordinator, and the coordinator will get you in touch with the UBL office, who can help you with patent drafting, patent filing, and commercialization, so they can assess your invention. So typically you have to disclose the invention, and then it will be assessed whether it's patentable or not, and then then we can proceed. And if you want to start your own company, yeah, bingo, we have incubators around, like the universities, they will help you with that. And public mechanisms like Sri Lanka Inventors Commission, National Research Council, NSF, National Science Foundation have grant schemes which support innovation and invention, and particularly Sri Lanka Inventors Commission is mandate is to support inventors. So they help inventors to file patents, to file commercial partners, and take care of them. So they conduct national competitions at different levels to identify inventions and innovations. So a lot of opportunities around, a lot of money is out there to support. But the thing is, we have to identify these opportunities and reach out, because that is the problem, right? Because we have a very, I don't know, introvert behaviors. I don't know whether it's due to the culture, but we are very hesitant to break our shells, right? And approach, or at least to do something different, right? So that means that we have to somehow get out of our system. So we have to be mainly foster an attitude with open-mindedness, right? Open-mindedness is in trying out new things, because this is the time, this is the perfect time, right? You will not get the freedom and time and energy that you have as undergrads ever, right? After this, because after that you start working, then you have work commitment, you have family commitment, so many things happen. This is the time, right? Don't waste any time that you have. Do something which is actually going to help build your skill or your career later on, right? So acquire some skill, because take full advantage of all the opportunities, right? Participate in hackathons, makeathons, boot camps across the world. Now, because you can participate in online startup weekends. Start up your sharpen your soft skill and hard skills, because hard skills is your major qualification, but soft skills make you stand out, whether it's communication skills, writing skills, entrepreneurial skills, right? Keep in mind, being an engineer, you'll be playing the role of an entrepreneur in different forms, right? You are bound to do that. And you, at some point later in your career, or even early in your career, you'll be managing institutions, whether it's an office or completely or a director general of a government department. You are the boss, right? You're running the business of it. So you should know where to invest your money and what are the development projects that you have to carry out. Because everything is even if it's a government machinery, it's an enterprise, right? Mismanagement of that is actually have brought us to this level, right? So we have to be competent. We have to be more entrepreneurial, especially the engineers. At least we can make a change over there. So those skills are very important. And we have to make because these institutions are pumping money. They are paying the salaries, right? They are paying the contractors. But if the job is not done properly, if whatever the economic benefit is not reaped from that investment, that's an utter failure. So it's actually an engineering failure, sort of, at some point, right? So you'll be playing the role of an entrepreneur in disguise, in different forms, right? So the opportunities everywhere. Just have to seize it. Just check it out, right? Whenever there is a hackathon or something is happening, some workshop is happening, just go there. Just check it out, right? Expose yourself to those different ideas. So everybody has ideas, right? We can have innovative ideas, but ideas worth nothing if you cannot commit and invest time in it, right? So people who invest in ideas, invest means not the money, right? Your time. Maybe you can start. If you have a really great idea, you like take it as a pet project, do something with it, regularly invest some time, or your like a hobby, and work on it. And if you have developed to a certain stage, there you go. But if you don't do that, nothing is going to come out. And keep in mind, failure is always a strength, especially in making business, right? Making new things. So you have to shed the fear of failure. You don't first think about failure first. So you try to engage and see where it leads, because I mean, one of the people who invest in startup companies, when they look at the profiles of people, like who the team, like the CEO, the founders, who's actually doing that, and having many failed startups or failed enterprises is another added qualification. Why? Because it's an indication this guy is very passionate about it because he has failed a few times, but still he's coming back, right? That means he might have learned these lessons, how and why he failed, and probably he'll be avoiding such failures or such points of failure. So rather than a complete novice is a great idea, may not have no experience at all. So if you are an investor, who will be you investing on? Somebody who has experience. It doesn't have to be successful, right? It could be failure too, but that person is more qualified than a complete novice who have no exposure to failures. So think in a different way, learn to think. So always challenge the ideas. It's called like challenge the convention. Don't ever think a particular, let's say, don't think about impossibility, right? See how we can make things possible. There's always a way. There's always a way of making things happen. But just have to find out how it's being done. So you need to invest a lot of time and energy. So, and develop your skills down the road. So an example at the Faculty of Engineering. So we have an active IP policy, intellectual property policy, and technology innovation and support center. So if somebody comes up with an invention, we can help them draft their patents and file their patents. The university will bear the cost. Because the policy, if you need, we can talk about later on. But what it says is, if the research is done with the university resources, so the inventor will be inventor, definitely university will own. So it will take care of all the patenting, commercialization, all those things, and give you the benefits that you deserve. Like if the university licenses out to an industry, then the industry will pay royalty based on invention or some fee. So that will be divided among the university and in the inventors, right? So that's mechanism is already happening, and I think in few days we are going to sign the first commercialization agreement with an industry for an invention which happened in the Faculty of Agriculture, right? So things are happening in all the universities, right? So it's similar to what's actually happened. What happened in West a few years back, now it's starting to happen here. So don't think that the Sri Lankan universities are lagging behind, but they're starting now. So it will be up to you to utilize these things. So, and we expose students to the innovation and invention culture from day one. We start doing activities and strategically expose them to this entrepreneurship and innovation culture right from the orientation program. So I see some of the 20 batch students, so they may bear witness, right? And continuous exposure via many programs through the curriculum and beyond. Because in the curriculum, we have this soft skill program. So there we introduce them to entrepreneurship elements. So there are courses, general elective courses dedicated to entrepreneurship, and training programs, workshops, boot camps, always there, right? But only the last 2 years, the challenges we faced in physically organizing these things. But and the important thing is the access to the incubation center and the startup ecosystem. So we have excellent mentors and people who have done and been entrepreneurs, professors who have been entrepreneurs with us, to helping students. So you just have to reach out, right? The incubation center was established in 2018 with the support of Sri Lanka Inventors Commission. So it's actually in the computer engineering building, you might have seen. So it has workspace, internet connectivity, access to mentors, testing, prototyping facilities, and the capacity building programs, and the IP protection and commercialization support that this program I mentioned. So it is both open to the university community and the potential outside members. There's any inventor outside can also get benefited. So it's not just close to the university. Anybody can come and benefit. So it will be a full-scale incubator with a great floor area, 3,700 square meters, and prototyping facilities. So government approved it, and now we don't have money, but we'll get the money soon. So I am the coordinator, and Ms. Yalini is also there. So she is also involved, and he's also a team member. So you can reach out to me if you have if you need any help with any startup ideas you have, you want it to take to the next level, or you have an invention and you want to get it protected. All these things are done, and keep that in mind. That when you do these things, right, naturally an inhibition comes. Okay, somebody might steal my idea, right? Of course, there's always a possibility. That's why we have the channels, right? You have to go to the right place. So technology transfer office, so the UBL facilitated through, I'm also the UBL coordinator for the faculty of engineering, so I'm the channel. So we are naturally bound because we have non-disclosure agreements that we make with the industry when we discuss these things, right? So we are already bounded by non-disclosure. We cannot, when you disclose an invention and somebody discloses an invention to me, I cannot talk about it to anybody else, right? If I do, I could be sued, right? And I have to pay the damages. So the mechanisms are there to protect your invention. So the main thing is not to just hide your invention, but you bring it, see what sort of protection that is needed, and then take it forward. Because most of the issues that we see is students are doing a fantastic job in the undergraduate research projects. They really solve the industry actual problems. But that happens is when you finish it, then you just pack everything up and you get your degree and you run away, right? But having these centers, right, especially incubation center, is actually to support somebody who wants to pursue that idea further and make a business out of it. And so that'll so in that way, what we do is on a case-by-case basis, we can get funding, like from whether it's Inventors Commission or private donors or national grants. So many different agencies are there currently supporting with no strings attached. So a lot of opportunities around you. So just keep an open mind. Right? That's the most important part. Just see, just expose yourself, because I know that it's a fact that only around like less than 10% of the students will have entrepreneurial mindset at the beginning. But the thing is, you need to know the nuts and bolts of it, right? Because if you know this is there's such a opportunity exists, and if an opportunity comes to you, how to use it. So if you know the mechanism of it, how these things happen and how you have to approach it, what are the elements of it, what are the skill set that you already developed, and when you feel, okay, this is the time that I want to pursue my own dream, then you are ready. Right? So that opportunity only comes through the university education, or else you have to go for a separate training, and that may cost you different amount of money and time. So, but the university, like at least the engineering faculties now have established a lot of mechanisms to support students with entrepreneurial mindset and also first on entrepreneurial mindset. So it all revolves around building an innovation in ecosystem, right? So learn to be open-minded, identify solutions or identify problems and solve them, and when you enjoy it, then everything becomes everything falls into place, right? But always keep in mind that the environment is there to support you, right? The ecosystem is being made, and the universities are already supporting such things and such initiatives. So compared to the time that we were undergrads, now it's completely different, completely transformed. We wish we had such opportunities, right? So just make use of it. So yeah, I'm happy to take questions. So I mean, if I'm in your position, I'll have so many questions, right? Especially invention, patents, disclosures, commercialization. How do you approach a problem? How do you identify a problem? So there are so many things that you may be interested, and so I'm happy to answer. So how are we going to take the question? So you can send it through the chat, or you unmute yourself and ask the question. Oh, you have anything? You have a separate mechanism? Great. Okay. So I can also. Okay, how to, yeah, so these are questions. How to check whether an idea that comes to mind is a good invention or not? Good. Okay, so let me, so there are, should an invention always need to have a target? Okay. How do I know? All right, so, okay, so there's another question about how do I know if my idea is good? Right, so I believe this is the same. So how to check whether an idea that comes to mind is a good invention or not? Good. So one thing is, whenever you come up with an idea, make sure you record it first. You write it somewhere, put the date, right? And write that idea. When you write it, right, the first act of writing, right? So trying to put things into word, what you have in mind itself will refine it in the first iteration, right? You will see when you try to explain it, you will learn, okay, whether it works or not, or what sort of issues there. Then you have to search, do some simple search, just search in the internet. First thing, whether such idea already exists or such product exists, if you're thinking about a product or a process. If you don't see that, then next thing is to look at the patent database, right? So one such database is where you can look at is patent scope, patent scope. If you, let me see, let me share that. Okay, here. So if you can see now, the whiteboard.int. So if you just search patent scope, it will lead you this place. So here, this is actually this is maintained by the World Intellectual Property Organization. It has a wealth of information, right? A lot of resources there. You can learn a lot about intellectual property and so on, right? Yeah. So here, if you access the patent database, there it's like a search engine, right? But a search engine for the patents. So you can identify, you can write keywords, right? You can mention where you want to search, because these are different parts of a patent: front page, any field, full text, ID number, classification number, names, publication, right? So, for example, if I let's say okay, if I just type rapid antigen test, just for out of curiosity, whether somebody has paid now, right? Let's see. So patent scope is one such database. Okay, I'm waiting for that. And there's so these are free databases. There's another one called eSpaceNet. This is the European Intellectual Property Office database. eSpaceNet, and there's another one, the USTPO. Search for patent. Right, see, so the first search we did the patent scope, the rapid antigen test. See, look at that, the first one, rapid detection test strip for epizootic hemorrhagic disease virus antibody and preparation method of rapid detection test strip. So it's for the test strip. The invention discloses a rapid detection test strip for epizootic hemorrhagic disease virus, EHDV, antibody, and the preparation method of rapid detection test strip. So this is not now, but the thing is, so this is in the front page, right? So we can actually refine these searches. So there are many such outcomes. So there are different patents. Look at some information. So this is the international class, patent class. So we classify patents based on different invention fields, and the next one is the application number. Applicant is a Chinese inventor, I believe. This is CN, so you can see the number CN, so it's Chinese patent. See the second one, you can see the applicant, Jilin, this is a biotechnology company. The inventor is Li Shubo, so he works at the company. and this is a Chinese patent. So a lot of rapid antigen test. So the first one is in 2014, 2015, then the latest one you see here is salinic acid artificial antigen rapid detection test for, okay, how to make it. But if you add something, let's say, okay, let me check the other one. Let me do a search here. This is USTP ExpressNet. Right here, COVID-19 antigen. Let's just search that. See, COVID-19 antigen preparation method and application. So this is a Chinese patent, right? The second one is I think the is Denmark. I don't know, Deutschland or maybe German patent. So third one. So this is how we do it. So just go and type some keywords. It comes to your mind representing your invention, and see whether somebody has that idea. So you can go ahead. If I click this, I can get more information about this patent. So these are free databases. You can do a free search. And another one is Google patent. Patent.google. I'm sorry. Google. Yeah, patent.google.com. So this is also can help you. So COVID-19 antigen. Right. So you can see antigen search terms. You can add many search terms. Oh, COVID-19. Okay. So preparation method application is the same pattern that we saw earlier, right? So like that, you can actually find out. Just do an initial test of your idea, right? So then you can learn whether somebody has done it. But the thing is, you can. So this is the patent literature, right? And the research papers are also there. So you can actually search Google Scholar, scholar.google.com, because the non-patent literature can also be searched and checked. Because somebody has done any research or already find a method or something related to that. So that's why it's called prior art search. So it's better to do the prior art search. So then from there you can identify that somebody has already come up with an idea or not. But maybe you can see in which ways you can improve or do in a different way or in a better way the same idea compared to the one which has already been done and something like that. So this is a good way to check, right? And should an invention always need to have a target market potential? No. Right? So no. Hello? Yeah. So the next question is, okay. Yeah, is it possible to get a patent only for an idea? Yes, but yeah, there's called a different type actually, but it will be much stronger. You can get the patent for an idea, but it'll be much stronger if you can make it or implement it, and actually based on that the issues that you have during implementation make it work, right? So yes, you can get a patent for idea, True. You can do that. But what there is in the US patent system, there is a way of something like this. Whenever you get an initial idea, you can file something called a provisional patent. So then there what they can do is they can then work on the idea and make it, test it, and then clearly come up with all the proper claims and file the proper application within 1 year. But yes, you can make a patent. But if your idea is very clear and you have all the elements and how it functions and everything is very clear, you can do it. Yes. How to check whether an idea, but it's better to have it proven, right? Because otherwise it will be challenged. That's the point, right? Okay. How to check whether an idea that comes to mind? Yeah, I addressed. Should an innovation always need to have a target market point? It doesn't have to, but what's the point of having such innovation? What I mean, idea of innovation is what? Okay, you can have an innovation, of course, that's you can claim as an innovation, but why? What's the point of having innovation? Just for the having a good feel, okay, I have an innovative idea. Yes, great, that's a great idea. But is it going to do any good? It doesn't have to, right? Of course, it doesn't have to be have a market potential, but then it just stays as an idea. That's all. It's just an idea. It's not going to get realized. It's not going to get implemented. Because if it's going to be implemented, only maybe a prototype or an example operation. Because then if somebody cannot make money out of it, make any money out of it by making it and selling it, right, or letting people use it, then nobody is going to make it and sell it unless you want to put your money and lose your money, because it should be economically viable. That's the point. If I cannot make a pen and sell it at 10 rupees or some whatever 20 rupees, then and make money out of it, I will not do it, right? I mean, because how many pens I have to sell? There's a huge number of pens I have to make and sell to cater to the need of the world. If I cannot make money out of it, what's the point of it? I'm going to lose all my money. Then what's the point of doing that business in the first place, right? So that's why the business appeal should be there. That viability is very critical, right? Okay, you can, but the thing is this, right? A cool idea can be made viable, but that's where the engineering comes. The thing is, when fundamental breakthroughs happen, right? For the engineering of, let's say, for example, the fusion energy, as I mentioned right earlier, you have to make a way, practical way to implement it. That is engineering part of it, right? So you can you can invest time and make it more viable. Because sometimes making a prototype costs a lot, but when you make 1,000 or above pieces of it, the cost goes down, right? So the more and more you make, the cost goes down. But you have to find a way to make it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So people will be interested in buying as well as making it, right? How do you know my idea? Yes, you have to search, use some initial search, and if you don't see any similar invention, then you can work on that idea and make a prototype, and then, or else you can. So in a university like now, what we can help you with that. So if you come up with an idea, if you want to, we can help you with searches, patent database searches. So there are paid databases. At the moment, we do have access, so that's actually shared by all the universities in Sri Lanka. So there are two such patent databases. One is Derwent, and the other one is Innovation Q+. So they have very wide access to different databases and some analytics involved in it. So we can easily search and learn, get some insight on what sort of invention or the inventions are there related to the keywords that we search. So that we can we can get through the TISC center. So we can help with that to refine the idea, whether that idea is any good or whether there's already inventions are there or how you can modify it. So there, if you come up with an idea and if you need, so if you lack any technical parts, and then there you can approach the lecturers, so he can help you pair with the right person and so on. So yes, so there are ways. So any other questions?
Thank you, sir. I think it's no more questions.
All right. So thank you. So
Thank you very much.
Mark.
Okay. You continue, sir. You can.
Yeah. Um, so I feel free to email me if you have any questions. So I'll try to help you out. We'll get you connected to the right resources, and so keep an open mind. That's very important. Right? And tap all the opportunities that you get. So this is the right time and age, and you have the right amount of energy. You may not have it down the road in 10 years. So make use of all the opportunities that you get. Really direct your creativity to make an impact. Right? So try it out. Who cares, right? If you fail, if you know, nothing to lose to a certain extent. So now the system is there to support you. So make use of it. So you have to take calculated risks, right, in order to reap the benefits. You don't take risks, you don't get anything in your life, right? So yeah, everything is a risk. The moment that you step out of your home in your vehicle or somewhere, there's always a risk involved, whether you don't know whether you come alive. But you take calculated risk in driving or engaging in any activity, even sports. Right? So we have to take risk, especially in this field, with ideas, different ideas, innovative ideas, and see whether that's acceptable, or how we can make it a different or better. Only when you do that, you innovate, you create new things. All right, so good luck to all, and please feel free to contact me if you have any issues, any questions as well.
Thank you very much, sir, for the marvelous presentation and the wonderful Q&A session. I am taking this moment to appreciate you, sir, for this accepting our invitation and help us to make this even more successful. Now it's time for the quick recap of 6th episode of Invent Ovation 2020-21. Sorry for the inconvenience. I will play it again.
SAP Shalinda Silva. Engineer Shalinda Silva has IESL UIY, in collaboration with IESL Students Chapter in University of Peradeniya, took the next step to advocate the young undergraduates, to give them a new motivation, a new ambition, a new idea in order to improve the next future.
Warmly welcome today's guest speaker, Engineer Shalinda Silva, Chairman of JIY UIY Committee, Engineer Navodana Kalkanamke, Liaison Officer of ISL Student Chapter in University of Peradeniya, Engineer Mahana Amadisanayaka, and all other participants who have joined this webinar.
We are always encouraging you to do these inventions and innovations, maybe little things after you graduate. You're working as engineer, so in your working place or field, whatever, wherever, you have to put new systems.
The guest speaker for today is Engineer SAP Shalinda Silva. Engineer Shalinda Silva has obtained his bachelor's degree in engineering with first-class honors in mechanical engineering from University of Peradeniya in year 2010. And holds a Master of Engineering in Manufacturing Systems Engineering in University of Montreal.
That is simply means that the practical implementation of ideas that results in the introduction of new goods or services, or improvements in offering goods or services. An act of making changes to the existing product or the process by introducing new ways or ideas. This is the developer as applicator. That attachment is driven by the PTO shaft of the tractor. We use the cylindrical spreading mechanism. That means the cylinder which has several splines.
Is there a time period that a patent, some kind of patent is given and it would be no longer valid in the time period? That means like a 10-year time period.
Yeah, nearly 20 or 25 years in Sri Lanka.
It will be the end of the episode 6. So until we meet again, goodbye.
Sorry for the inconvenience and hope you all are enjoyed that video. Now I gladly invites Mr. Janathan Paramasivan to deliver a vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I am honored and lucky to have the opportunity to give a vote of thanks on this special day. I am Janathan, Chairman of IESL Student Chapter, University of Jaffna. On behalf of entire organization, first and foremost, would like to thank you, our webinar speaker, Mr. Valvan sir, for visiting and enlightening us with his knowledge. Today's webinar was full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave deep insights into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts. I am pretty sure that precious knowledge of that Mr. Valvan sir gave us will definitely help us in our students and future. My sincere thanks to IESL UIY for organizing such series of events to enhance knowledge of students. I also extend my gratitude to any engineer Navodana really sorry for that connection issue. Once again, good evening, everyone. I am honored to lucky have an opportunity to give the vote of thanks on this special day. My sincere thanks to ISL UIY for organizing such a series of events to enhance the knowledge of students, and I also extend my gratitude to Engineer Navodana Kanagamake to take out the time for his busy schedule to grace the event. And also, on the behalf of our entire organization, first and foremost, like to thank our webinar speaker, Mr. Valluvan sir, for visiting and enlightening us with this knowledge. Today's webinar was full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave deep insight into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts. I'm pretty sure the precious knowledge of that Mr. Valluvan sir gave us will definitely help us in studies and future. And I would also like to thank the student committee, especially Mr. Randika, for the complete preparation of this event. Due to heavy rain and power cuts, we couldn't make as we expected. So on behalf of our committee, I'm really sorry for that. Anyway, in that such short time, Randika made the best arrangements for the program. Thank you so much. But last but not least, I thank all participants for showing their interest in the event. And once again, thanks everyone for making this event successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Janana. Finally, I request everyone to switch on your cameras and giving a charming look. It's time for the group photo. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Good night, all.